and again, Caitlin Clark doing a little bit of an acting job.
Brittney Griner may have thought she could sidestep the backlash over her controversial comments about Caitlin Clark, but Indiana Governor Mike Braun just dropped a political bombshell that sent shockwaves through the WNBA after the league launched. An investigation into what turned out to be false accusations against Indiana Fever fans, while seemingly ignoring legitimate concerns surrounding Griner's viral video. Pressure is mounting fast. Now, with a high-profile political figure stepping in, the WNBA's selective enforcement is under serious scrutiny. Is the league showing a clear bias against Caitlin Clark and her fan base? That's the question fans and critics alike are now asking. Well, well, well. Look who's feeling the heat. Griner, who may have assumed the controversy would fade like others before it, is now facing real consequences. For too long, it seemed the league protected certain players while leaving others exposed. But Governor Braun's involvement just turned up the temperature. The situation is unraveling fast, and the WNBA is facing a reckoning. Let's unpack how we got here, because this saga has more layers than a wedding cake and twice the drama.
She accused the Indiana Fever fan base of being racist. They investigated it. They said those accusations were false. The least that she could do is apologize to our great state and the fans that show up at these games and say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Obviously, she's not going to do that. But also, Dan, why isn't the Indiana Fever apologizing to their own fan base for putting them through that, for going through those types of accusations? I mean, those are awful accusations. They weren't true. The fans weren't shouting.
The WNBA dedicated time and resources to investigating completely fabricated claims that Indiana Fever fans made hateful comments toward Angel Reese after the Chicago Sky were blown out by 30 points. The accusations were so obviously baseless that even the league had to admit they couldn't be substantiated. But here's where it gets really interesting. While the WNBA rushed to probe phantom allegations of racism against Reese, it turned a blind eye to a viral video of Brittney Griner. That video, which has racked up millions of views, has many convinced she called Caitlin Clark trash and a F-wording white girl. The contrast in response is raising serious questions about the league's priorities and its apparent double standards.
Shouting racial slurs toward Angel Reese or opposing players. I mean, where is Caitlin Clark? Where is the Indiana Fever? Where is the WNBA saying that investigation there shouldn't have been an investigation? The allegations were false. Where's the apology? It hasn't happened. It's disappointing. As someone who is, my daughters are fans of the team. They've gone to games to see Caitlin Clark. It's so demeaning to our state and to the fan base to go through something like that.
The hypocrisy is so blatant, it's almost painful to watch. The WNBA is quick to launch investigations into invisible hate speech that doesn't even exist, yet when actual video evidence surfaces, showing potentially inappropriate behavior from one of their protected stars, they suddenly develop selective hearing and vision. It's like the league has a special superpower. They can only detect discrimination when it fits their preferred narrative. Governor Braun wasn't fooled. He called out the double standard in the most diplomatic way possible when he said, I think if there was some look into what Angel Reese did, I think it would be good to put that to rest as well. That wasn't just a polite suggestion. It was a clear signal to the WNBA that their bias isn't slipping past the people who actually hold power.
Everyone deserves the right to play. Everyone deserves the right to come here, sit in these seats, and feel safe and not feel like there's a threat or they can't be who they are. Definitely will be speaking up against that legislation and those laws that are trying to be passed, for sure.
The governor made it clear that he has zero tolerance for bigotry and bullying. He believes that when inappropriate or nonsensical comments are made, they should be acknowledged and addressed. However, it seems the WNBA only chooses to acknowledge misconduct when it serves to protect certain players, often while targeting others. Now, let's talk about the viral Brittney Griner video that has sparked widespread discussion. The footage appears to show Griner making remarks that many interpreted as calling Caitlin Clark trash and using a racial slur. Griner's defenders argue she was actually criticizing the referee's decision, calling it a F-ing whack call. But Here's the question. If it was so clearly a comment about the referee, why hasn't Griner stepped forward to clarify her words?
Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever are the best gift that the WNBA has ever had. I mean, and the fans that show up and pack that place, I mean, sell out crowds every time Caitlin Clark plays. It's so great for Indiana, but it's good for the WNBA. But how dare you accuse our fans, the Hoosiers that show up at these games, being racist when they're not? I mean, that was just an opposing player who hates Caitlin Clark. Frankly, it's a great rivalry for.
The WNBA has released a statement offering context, but the overall silence remains deafening, and it speaks volumes about how the league operates. When there's fabricated outrage over imagined comments directed at Angel Reese, the league launches a full investigation almost instantly. But when there's genuine concern over actual remarks caught on video, suddenly no one has time to respond. This entire situation highlights the double standards at play in the WNBA, a protected class system, where certain players are seemingly above criticism, while others are scrutinized for the smallest actions. Caitlin Clark is constantly under the microscope, judged for every facial expression, every turnover, and every supposed slight against her opponents. Meanwhile, Brittney Griner can allegedly make inflammatory on-camera remarks, and the league simply looks the other way. The timing of this controversy is no coincidence either. It erupted just after
for the teams and for the sport, but don't accuse our fans of being racist. I mean, that's the kind of garbage that gets thrown around all the time. It wasn't true. The investigation proved it, and there was no outcome of it. There was no apology. Apologize to the fans. I mean, that's a simple thing to do, and I wish the team would have been more emphatic about that. Stand up, stick up for your fan base. I mean, that's who's keeping you alive. So maybe they'll still do that. I don't know. I mean, I tweeted that Angel Reese should apologize, and my tweet got a lot of reaction.
The Fever completely dismantled the Sky in a game where Caitlin Clark wasn't even on the court. The Sky were so thoroughly outplayed that they seemed desperate for a distraction from their organizational shortcomings. Conveniently, out of nowhere, reports of supposed hateful comments from Fever fans began to surface, just in time to shift the narrative. Suddenly, the league had something to investigate, painting Angel Reese as a victim rather than a player who had just been outplayed by a team missing its star. But Governor Braun isn't buying into the distraction. He understands Caitlin Clark's impact, not just on the Indiana Fever, but on the entire basketball landscape of the state. He knows Clark fills Gainbridge Fieldhouse just like the Pacers do, and that she's reignited enthusiasm for the game across Indiana, from college gyms to high school courts. This isn't just about basketball. It's about protecting an athlete who has brought unprecedented attention and economic impact to Indiana. Governor Braun's comments, expressing hope that the hostility toward Caitlin Clark will end and calling for equal treatment, highlight what's truly at stake. The WNBA has allowed a toxic culture to fester, one where attacking Clark is not only tolerated but seemingly encouraged, while anyone who defends her or her fans risks being branded as problematic. Senator Jim Banks has already demanded that the WNBA apologize to Fever fans for pursuing a baseless investigation. Now, Governor Braun is echoing that sentiment, demanding fairness and accountability for real, documented incidents. These aren't just random politicians chasing headlines. They are elected officials from Indiana who understand both the cultural and financial significance of what's unfolding. The fact that state leaders are stepping in should serve as a major wake-up call for the league.
By Autumn Johnson.
BG, right now you have 10 points, 5 rebounds. We see the Atlanta Dream as being very... Right now she's talking to the refs.
When your bias becomes so blatant that it prompts political intervention, you've clearly crossed a line that shouldn't have been crossed. This isn't about politics. It's about fairness and consistent application of the WNBA's own rules. Brittney, Griner's reaction to all of this must be priceless. She's long been accustomed to the WNBA shielding her from real consequences, enjoying a level of immunity due to her background and elevated status within the league's internal dynamics. But now, she's facing potential scrutiny from voices outside the WNBA, people who aren't influenced by its politics or power plays. The disparity in how this situation is being handled compared to anything involving Caitlin Clark is almost laughable. When Clark takes a hard foul, the media questions if she brought it on herself. When there are potentially derogatory comments about her, they're brushed off. Yet, when baseless claims surface about her fans, the WNBA suddenly turns into a full-blown investigation unit. Now, with Governor Braun calling for an investigation, the WNBA might be opening a Pandora's box. If the evidence is examined fairly, and consistent standards are actually applied, the league could be forced to confront some uncomfortable truths.
About holding. We're going to send it back to you guys. Very important questions.
The league has been operating under a system that protects certain players while subjecting others to unfair scrutiny, and that system is now facing serious external pressure. The most troubling aspect of this entire controversy isn't necessarily what Griner may or may not have said, but rather what it reveals about the WNBA's deeply flawed and biased investigative process. They're quick to act on fabricated allegations involving fans, but routinely ignore legitimate concerns raised by players. Some athletes are shielded almost automatically, while others are left vulnerable to attacks without consequence. Governor Braun's involvement only underscores a reality the WNBA has been trying hard to avoid. Caitlin's situation can no longer be brushed aside.
Brittney Griner is playing a game, and this is what Brittney Griner calls. I was not going to comment on any of this stuff until this took place. Watch what she says. The entire internet has reacted to this. Here's Brittney Griner. They're playing against the Indiana Fever, and look what she's saying. Go ahead, Rob.
For the ticky-tack fouls that we were talking about earlier today.
That pretty much sounds like...
Clark has become bigger than the league itself, bringing unprecedented attention, revenue, and legitimacy to the WNBA. When government officials begin speaking out in her defense and calling out the league's double standards, it's a clear sign that her influence reaches far beyond the basketball court. The timing couldn't be worse for Brittney Griner, who has already been navigating various controversies and public criticism. Now, she may be facing real accountability for her actions, something that's long been absent in her career. The protective bubble that once surrounded her appears to be bursting, and that must be an unsettling shift for someone accustomed to preferential treatment. What makes this situation particularly notable is that Griner can't lean on the victim narrative this time. This controversy isn't about her personal identity. It's about integrity, fairness, and how the league chooses to wield its power.
Sounds like trash effing white girl.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be honest.
So the whole market reacts to this with Brittney Griner, right? And then the other quote, Rob, then I'm going to wrap this up and then I'm going to go to Adam. Put the quote of Brittney Griner, what she said about the NBA. This is so funny how all this stuff works out, right? She says, this is from Brittney. Every time we play her, there's this commotion, like this loud rumbling from the stands. Turns out it's people, thousands of them, just sitting there, watching on purpose. It's very disruptive. It's called the freaking game that they pay you money to play. Don't play the game.
This isn't about Griner's past struggles or her background. It's about the potentially inflammatory remarks she made about another player. With video evidence circulating, she can't simply deflect criticism or claim persecution. The facts are out there. Now the WNBA finds itself in a no-win situation. They can either continue ignoring the controversy and face mounting political pressure, or launch an investigation and, in doing so, admit their earlier inaction was biased and unjust. Either path reflects poorly on the league, and that's the consequence of the system they helped create. Governor Braun's remarks, urging the league to embrace what Caitlin Clark has done instead of undermining it, highlight just how absurd the situation has become. Clark has generated more attention and revenue for the WNBA than any player in its history. Yet some players and even league officials seem intent on downplaying her achievements. The fact that political leaders are now stepping in shows that this is no longer just a sports issue. It has crossed into broader public discourse. The WNBA can't quietly sidestep this one or hope it fades away. When governors and senators start weighing in, it's clear the situation has reached a breaking point.
NBA that they cannot handle all this attention that they're getting, as well as the hate and anger towards Caitlin Clark.
First things first. Respectfully. Brittney Griner was in a Russian prison. You would think that somebody who is now free, back in America on home soil.
This entire situation also lays bare the WNBA's hypocrisy when it comes to its social justice messaging. The league frequently champions equality and fairness, but its actions suggest those values are only upheld when they serve the interests of select players. True equality means investigating every claim with the same level of urgency and holding everyone to the same standard, regardless of status or popularity. The investigation Governor Braun is calling for could peel back the curtain on years of biased decision-making and preferential treatment. Once that thread is pulled, there's no telling how much corruption and favoritism might be exposed. The league has played favorites for so long, it may no longer even recognize how blatant its bias has become.
Would not have too much to complain about. Especially something like this. Fans in every sport. She described the fans. Yeah. It doesn't matter what sport you are. It doesn't matter what sport you pick. That's how fans act in every arena. In every arena. So, and then when you, clearly she's not remembering who they let out to get her back.
The
on
Merchant
American
of
soil.
Death.
The Merchant of Death. An arms dealer that wanted to kill American citizens, according to the reports. That's who they let out. For her.
Brittney Griner's apparent shock at facing potential consequences is likely genuine, because until now, she's rarely, if ever, had to deal with real accountability. The WNBA has shielded her through multiple controversies and waves of criticism, so the prospect of an actual investigation into her conduct is probably unfamiliar territory. Governor Braun's involvement also sends a strong signal to other political leaders. This issue resonates with voters. Caitlin Clark has nationwide support, and those supporters cast ballots. When elected officials start publicly defending her and criticizing the league's bias, others in government are bound to take notice. This controversy highlights exactly why the WNBA continues to struggle with credibility and respect. When your disciplinary process is so transparently biased that government officials feel compelled to intervene, you've lost any illusion of fairness or institutional legitimacy. The league has traded its integrity for the sake of protecting favored players, and now it's facing the fallout. Perhaps the most satisfying part of this unraveling situation is watching the long-standing double standards finally come under scrutiny.
By Autumn Johnson. BG, right now you have 10 points, 5 rebounds. We see the Atlanta Dream as being very... Right now she's talking to the refs.
The WNBA's carefully crafted narrative is unraveling in real time. For too long, the league has downplayed Caitlin Clark's influence while elevating other players, creating a system that was never built to last. Now, that system is being exposed for what it truly is, a biased protection racket favoring select athletes. Governor Braun's remarks, emphasizing Indiana's deep basketball roots and Clark's rightful place in the state, underscore the broader economic and regional significance of this controversy. When you target the very player who's driving record-breaking attention and revenue for an entire state, it's only natural that the state's leadership will push back. The WNBA's house of cards is beginning to collapse, and Brittney Griner is about to find out what real accountability looks like. Governor Braun's call for equal treatment has fundamentally shifted the playing field. What happens next? That depends on whether the league chooses transparency or continues down the path of selective enforcement? Drop your predictions below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates as this story unfolds.
About holding. We're going to send it back to you guys.
Very important questions.